Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Liad. This week we're diving into the world of overpowered color light, the kind of color so strong it completely transforms the look of a subject. Let's jump into it. Today's painting is a 9x12 oil painting on ABS. The reference I'm using today has more colors compared to yesterday's, and they're a little less isolated. Still, they're fairly contained in their own zones. When painting this, it feels like working on small pools of monochrome color, except it's not technically purely monochrome. For example, some of the red sections transition from black to deep red, then to orange, yellow, and white as they get lighter. Technically, I'm mixing 4 different colors, but I think of it as a red monochrome. I don't stress out about getting the skin color correctly. The color is so overpowering, it doesn't matter what the skin tones actually are, it all just becomes red, or a variation of red. If the values are correct, and the hue is consistent within the range, the piece will read correctly. Now here's a challenge I ran into, and it's the same one from yesterday. The saturation of my red just wasn't bright enough. But unlike yesterday, this didn't surprise me. I adjusted the painting to work with the colors I could mix. But it's not just the red that was tricky. The truth is, paint, no matter how vibrant, is dull compared to what we see in real life or on screens. Paint can't emit light like a screen does. So when we're painting something like flames or some kind of glowing effect, we're limited to how much light bounces off the paint itself. Some artists combat this by painting on metal or mirrors to enhance the brightness, because this way the subsurface actually reflects more of the light. Others backlight their paintings for a glowing effect, but you don't have to go to those extremes to create the illusion of glow. There are techniques you can use, and one popular method is indirect painting, which involves translucent layers. I have practiced this technique with acrylics back in art school, but I've never tried it with oils. While this technique can produce a stunning, luminous result, I'll be honest, I really hate the process. It's just not for me. And that was with acrylics. I can't imagine how slow and tedious it would be with oils. Given how slowly they dry, it sounds like a nightmare. My approach is simpler and very common. I use laser beams. I'm kidding. I adjust the values and the colors to fit within the limitations of the medium I'm using. People's perception of color and light is surprisingly relative. Maybe you remember those optical illusions with the gray squares that look darker or lighter depending on the context, if they're in the light or in the shadow, but they're actually the same color, hence the optical illusion. Or the infamous blue and black or gold and white dress. It's all about context. You can make something appear more saturated or glowing by carefully controlling the surrounding values and colors, even if your paint isn't as vibrant as your screen. A couple of quick tips for you if you're using a screen for your reference. Turn down the brightness. This compresses the range and better mimics what your paint can do. Also, when comparing your paint colors to the screen, hold your palette at a distance to avoid shadows from the screen affecting your perception. Another option to consider is using brighter pigments, like neon colors. Here's an example of a neon John Wick painting I did. Super fun. Well, not actually fun to paint, but the result is super fun. The paints were horrible, but that's aside from the point. Just be aware that neon pigments, and some other vibrant pigments, tend to fade because they're not lightfast. Every professional paint, and most hobby paints, should have a lightfast rating on them. You can usually trust that. There are a few exceptions, but generally it should have a label that says how lightfast it is. A very famous example of this is Van Gogh's sunflower paintings, and I'm not going to pronounce Van Gogh correctly, and I'm not going to try. Apologies all around. In Van Gogh's sunflower paintings, he used a very bright yellow called chromium yellow, but unfortunately that yellow is not lightfast, so it's faded now to brown. To be clear, this fading isn't just an oil paint issue, it's the pigment itself regardless of the medium. So what do? Do you stick with the lightfast materials for the longevity, or play around with vibrant, saturated colors, but less durable ones that will fade over time? It's a personal choice. I generally use lightfast materials that I know will stand the test of time, but sometimes though it is fun to play with different materials. Not every painting has to last 100+ years. If you want to extend the life of neon pigments, you can try using UV varnish, though I'm not sure how effective it really is. Generally speaking, UV varnish is good to put on all your paintings. However, I have not found a UV varnish that I can apply within a reasonable time, so I generally don't use UV varnish. Anyways, here's how the painting came together. I think it really captures the light from the lighter, and overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out. That's it for today's painting. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Want to chat more about art? Join my community on Discord, or follow my social media. Links are down in the description. And if this painting caught your eye, it's available on my website for the special price of $250. Go check it out. Have an amazing week, and as always, happy painting!